Sure. All right.
We are on.
We're on. Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Well, we have our audience of one from Australia right now, which is so great. We love to have our fans here. So thanks for joining us today with our low carb chats. Again, I'm Radley Griffin, concierge physician in Tampa, Florida, and I have Dr. Mihaela Telecan from Melbourne, Florida, of healingwithfoods.org.
Yes.
And also author of a wonderful new book, Making Peace with Fat, which should, look how gorgeous that looks. That should hit, when will that hit the newsstands and Amazon?
I'm debating between middle of December or beginning of January. I might do like a soft release only for friends, family, and very interested people in December, and then a bigger launch in January. I'm thinking January people will be more receptive because everybody wants to, start the year fresh, New Year resolution, all that.
Yeah, I think that's great. Well, we'll really look forward to that. I'm fortunate to have read it. I love it. It's I have my own feelings about it, and very, very pleased. So congratulations again on that. That's wonderful.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, today what we wanted to touch on, and I think this is a really timely discussion for us, given Thanksgiving is tomorrow, and being in our position in family practice, primary care, trying to give dietary advice. This is sort of the dreaded season for us, and people really lose the mindset of low carb, high fat, or dieting or exercise. They kind of feel like, gosh, this is the time to sort of let go. And there's those of us who feel just this is a very special time of year. It's wonderful. It's festive. But it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to abandon our good habits that make us feel terrific. So we want to be here today offering a few tips for how to navigate a low-carb, high-fat Thanksgiving. So we wanted to touch on that today. Okay.
Yeah.
Anything you wanted to add to that?
I think this is a great, very timely discussion to have because many people around holidays, they feel anxiety and stress because most people around us do not eat this way.
Right.
So you go to office parties or family gatherings or you socialize with friends. It's more of a social time that involves food and can cause anxiety and distress, and you always feel like you are the strange one or the odd one. And first, I think I would like us to share how we do it because it's always easier to learn by example, by just mimicking someone else. Yeah. And then I will give some tips that over time I accumulate and I offer to my clients. And actually, I even have a section in the book. It's more for dining out and traveling, but applies to any social event, any gathering or holiday we go. How do we bulletproof our mind?
Very good. So talk about what you typically do, and I'll tell my typical Thanksgiving scenario with my family, and I think we'll find that from a timing perspective, there's a lot of families who sort of do the same thing, from what time they eat. The prolongation of this feast, it's not typically a meal, it's typically a feast over a period of time, and we'll throw in some strategies on how to navigate that. So go ahead, give us your typical Thanksgiving scenario.
I don't have one.
You don't have one?
I'm an American citizen, but I wasn't raised in this country, so I'm not used to the Thanksgiving. In fact, I even asked Lauren to tell me exactly what are the traditional
let's talk about the typical. This is the typical Thanksgiving meal. I'll share our family. Typically,
I can pitch in like what substitutions one can make or choices.
Okay, so here's what in the Griffin family we have a big gathering, and it's typically we'll either partly cater it or cook one year or bring side dishes. And the typical meal, I think, for us is like a lot of families out there. Your turkey, there may be another type of meat like a ham. Mm-hmm. The turkey can be prepared in different ways: baked, deep fried. There's a concoction called turducken, which is this combination of turkey, chicken, and duck, which is kind of interesting. Maybe some other meat. Some people do maybe a tenderloin at Thanksgiving or Christmas. So there's a typical. What's so great about Thanksgiving is there's a nice protein base typically, which is wonderful. I think we get into the trouble when we start looking at the sides, which are typical stuffing. The gravy, most gravies are typically a flour base, flour and vegetable oil. Talk about a inflammatory bomb. You think of the typical giblet gravy, which is just, when you think about it, it's like, wow, flour, typically a vegetable oil, two inflammatory disasters. Cranberry sauce of some kind. I think of the can that you crack open the can and you the cranberry sauce comes out in the exact shape of the can. I think of that immediately. There's typically some sort of casserole, green bean casserole, pumpkin pies, other sorts of desserts that are available.
Sweet
potato casserole. There's typically bread products. So you can tell there's a nice, I think, I don't want, or not so nice abundance of carbohydrate sugars during this time. And
any salads?
Not typically, which is interesting. I think a lot of people, our family in particular, will meet and what's I think a good thing about the Thanksgiving day, if we're trying to navigate it, is we typically won't eat breakfast that morning, for instance. Typically won't have a quote lunch, and then the Thanksgiving meal will be sort of in the afternoon. And I think that sort of serves the low carb, high fat person well, because it already includes a bit of a fast there, which is nice. And typically, maybe a family will arrive to the home, to the destination, and there will be some sort of munching items to be had, whether it be cheeses or dips or pickles or olives, something along those lines. And we're going to incorporate those into our low carb strategy as well. Then the big feast happens. There's generally seconds, perhaps, and then dessert, and then you sit on the couch and watch either the Lions or the Cowboys play football, and you go to sleep.
And you literally can't breathe, and you have to unbutton your pants.
Oh, that's the typical, and I think most people can relate to that scenario that I've spelled out. When I was a kid, we used to play football either before or after, but there's not much football happening these days. So not really watching, not playing. So that's the typical pattern. So I don't have to tell anybody, it's a very intense carbohydrate day. And the problem with it ends up being is you have so many leftovers. So then typically you take about 3 or 4 plates of food home with you to continue this feast on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday following. So it's not just one day; it's a 4-day carbohydrate just glut fest.
Overloading. So let's come up with some strategies right here, because now you explain very well what it entails. So one can approach it as, our ancestors went from feast to famine, right? Yeah. So let's pretend this is a feast day. So like you said, you fast. Maybe you can even fast the day before if you want, and all the way until the meal, Thanksgiving meal is served. Now, if you hosted and you make your own food, you can modify some of those things. You don't have to go overboard and have 5 different desserts that are always served.
Right.
So maybe you pick one. Let's say the sweet potato, because it's a whole food. Okay, it's high in carbs, but it's still a whole food. And maybe you don't add extra sugar to it because it's already sweet enough.
Right.
You make the green bean casserole. Maybe you make a collard greens saute. You can even add a salad. I'm sure if the salad is there, people would serve from it. And then you have the meat, the ham or the turkey. And you can have available gravy and stuffing for guests that are not following a low carb, but you, the person that follows the low carb, doesn't have to have it. Or if you don't have problems with gluten, you may have less. Unfortunately, I don't have any recipes, like modified recipes. I'm sure if one would research in the keto community, they would find some low carb gravy that's made with tapioca or with chia seeds or something else to thicken, or arrowroot, all those thickening gums. I'm pretty sure there is, but since it's something I don't make, I never play with it. For stuffing, again, you can try something made out of nuts to mock a stuffing, but I wouldn't even bother with it, because again, you can omit it, or you can just have literally a spoon as a taste, so you don't feel deprived, and you'll be happy with the other things because it's an abundance. You can have, like you said, protein, and choose some greens. If you are invited somewhere and it's a potluck, you can take 1 or 2 dishes that you know you will most likely eat. To give you an example, we had for my son's school like a gathering for Thanksgiving, and I planned to take a green bean casserole and a cauliflower mash, a potato mashed potato wannabe. I didn't, for whatever reason, I didn't get to make those dishes, so I ended up going to Fresh Market, and I looked, what can I take from Fresh Market that I would be able to eat if there's nothing else I can have there, and I'll be hungry because it's 5 o'clock and I fasted the whole day, right? So they had this tray with 2 different cheeses and apricots and fig spread. So I said, I'm going to take the cheese because I know I can eat cheese. I don't have to eat the apricots, the dry apricots. And I also took grapes for people that want something sweet. That's an alternative to a cake.
Sure.
And then when I was there, this is something for our audience to take note of it. If you see things that you recognize, like cheese or celery sticks, avocados, salad, okay, you just know it goes in your plate. You don't have to question. If there is something that's prepared, for instance, there was a mushroom dish cooked in the slow cooker. So if you're comfortable asking, you can ask people, what is in this if there doesn't have a label? So you know if you are okay with the ingredients.
Okay.
And if you add, you can be specific. Doesn't have sugar, doesn't have starch, doesn't have gluten. And if they say no, all it has is mushrooms with water and spices and blah. Oh, great. I enjoy mushrooms, so I can have it.
Yeah.
So number 1 is like lesson to take note of. If you can take a dish, take something you can also consume. Mm-hmm. Number 2 is don't be afraid to ask questions. Be respectful, polite. If people ask you why, you can say, I'm following a specific diet that I have to be free of those things for health reasons, inflammation, whatever. Sure. 3, if you decide that this is the day of the year when you feast and you don't mind about the ingredients, just go within it like that and don't feel bad about it afterwards. Yeah. And just pay attention to how you feel, because if you've been following low carb for long enough, you're not going to have the same appetite. You're not going to have the same feeling, like when you eat those foods, they won't taste the same. So just be mindful and don't overeat just because it's in front of you.
Yeah.
be with the family, be with the friends, socialize, and let the food just be, you know, like a part of the event, but not the main thing.
Yeah. I like that. I mean, my particular strategy for tomorrow is as follows, because we'll have I think we'll have the typical day. And so my strategy, if I can explain what
Yes.
I'm going to do. So tomorrow morning, I'll typically fast in the morning anyway. Often I'll fast through lunch. I didn't today, but often I will. And assuming I'll arrive at the location at, say, early afternoon, mid-afternoon, there will already be food ready. Food will be preparing. We're going to bring our low-carb recipes. I'm bringing a broccoli casserole, which is basically broccoli, cheese, a low-carb cream of mushroom, eggs, mayonnaise, and that's it. It's a very low-carb dish.
Low carb, yes.
Which we're going to bring, and we're going to bring another low-carb dish. And fortunately, in my family, we have family members who are also following low carb, so they're also bringing some low carb dishes. So we're going to arrive, and I like to break my fast typically with I like to break my fast with fat. So I'll generally grab a piece of cheese or start munching on cheese, and I do recommend this for people because it's when you're breaking your fast with fat as opposed to crackers or bread, you do get an insulin release when you introduce any type of food into your body, but you don't get such a marked spike of insulin in response to that initial fat. So I love the idea of going into the Thanksgiving day as opposed to waiting till mealtime. And one strategy would be mealtime may not be for an hour or two. Well, let's break the fast and start loading with fat, and that will accomplish several things. It will avoid the insulin spike, hopefully. We'll also begin to feel full and satisfied. So when maybe the carb load is coming down the pike, we will not be able to eat as much. And I love introducing fat to the gut first because it slows digestion. So the body can only process so much fat at a time, and will slow that digestion, which of course lends itself to feeling full faster. So I like the idea of cheeses, olives,
cream.
Cream is great. Coffee with cream.
I love to drink cream. That's crazy.
And then when it's time to eat, I really am going to look for the those of us who are meat eaters, animal eaters, look for the turkey, the ham. I love the dark meat. The dark meat has more flavor, is fattier, and I have an affinity toward that. And in lieu of a dressing, not a dressing, but a gravy, I love the idea of the drippings and the jus from whether it be the turkey or a ham or even a beef, using that jus to create moisture, to provide just wonderful nutritional fat for us. Yeah, and that flavor, of course, is great. And then we'll have a variety of those wonderful side dishes. I may or may not have some stuffing, depends on how I feel. And my general rule for desserts are as follows. I like good desserts. I think most people like good desserts. And for me to have a store-bought pumpkin pie, that's just not appetizing for me. I think I want to have my loved ones' most wonderful dessert they only make this time of year, and that's what I want to have. I don't want to have a store-bought pie that I could get any time of the year. That's just that to me is a waste. So I'd rather indulge on that really special dessert that I can only get this day at this time. That's meaningful to me, not a store-bought sugar load. That doesn't mean anything to me.
And vegetable oils. Usually that's Vegetable oils and sugar, hydrogen, some form of hydrogenated fats.
Absolutely. So I'd encourage, if we're being mindful and listening to our bodies, we want to be mindful of taking advantage of those feast times with really, really meaningful food. Good, I want tasty food, and not food that we can really get anytime we want. So I think that's my strategy, and I'll probably end the day with, coffee with cream. But I think it'll be a very interesting day where, it's nice because you can relax, listen to your body. When you're full, you stop eating. When you're hungry again, or you feel like you want more fuel, you can go back for more. But you're right. There's an abundance of food typically at Thanksgiving dinner. I don't think too many people will be scrutinizing anyone's plate because they're going to be concentrating on their own massive plate of food. So I think people can feel that they can navigate the low-carb, high-fat meal without a lot of scrutiny, I think, which is so important.
I think so. That's great. I love it. Now, maybe the next takeaway, and we have some comments, we can get to those. The next message that I would like to say is the leftovers. Like if it's hosted somewhere else, ask yourself, do I want to take leftovers home? And if I do, what would I choose to take? What right? Because you don't have to. I mean, people offer to, is nice, but if it's something that you think, oh no, I better not have more of this, because then I'm going to end up eating more, and I would rather keep my feast to one day. Right. Then you can just not take, because it's better not to have it around so you don't have to fight it.
Well, let's talk about that. So that's a great point. And my strategy for patients and clients and even family members would be, hey, we had a great feast on Thursday. Friday's a wonderful day to have a fast. Mm-hmm. And the idea is I'm not suggesting everyone fast the entire day, but let's push that meal on Friday to as late as we can. And then when we do consume, let's make sure it's really, really low carb.
It's more cleansing food than building foods, because you already took an abundance of fats and all sorts of nutrients aside from carbs. But then it's a good day to have perhaps more vegetables, like green juice, lots of parsley, cilantro, bitter vegetables. They help the liver release the bile and digest the fats that you eat. Yes. And by not having the carbs, you let your body go through the stored glycogen that happens during the feasting time. So I agree. And then my idea for what to do with the leftovers, if you don't want it for yourself, I don't know if that's possible. Can you donate it to those places in the community where they have homeless people, or that they has to be fresh cooked food?
That's a great question. I'm not sure it has to be fresh in a sense of if they can be frozen, you can take a plate of leftovers, freeze the portions and donate it. I'm not quite sure the answer on that, but either if anybody knows listening, they can come back and comment and help us, because this is something that, okay, I have too much for it, I don't need anymore. Instead of trashing it, you can give it to someone that doesn't have anything. Mm-hmm. The other one is freeze it and keep it in the freezer for another time. That's absolutely no reason to say we need to use all 4 days of this holiday or this holiday weekend to completely overindulge in products, because we can save them. We can freeze them. We can eat them at a later time, or you know what? We can also throw them away. I hate to be wasteful.
I know too, but sometimes it's better in the trash than in your body.
Yeah, we're not garbage disposals, so we shouldn't treat ourselves as such. So I think the idea sometimes, if we think, this was delicious, I had it, it was wonderful, but this has no place in my normal life, and frankly, maybe not even in my family's normal life or my kids' normal life. So the best idea is sometimes to put it in the garbage. And frankly, do we want to donate food? Like, if we're really philosophically consistent, maybe we don't want to donate either.
I know, but if some people didn't eat like I don't know, for 4 or 5 days, they'll be happy to have anything. But to give you another practical example, we were talking with my husband. He loves pecan pie, and especially this time of the year, I think pecan pie is more of the dessert, right, with pumpkin pie. So he said, "Oh, I would love pecan pie for." I said, "I can buy for you from Fresh Market." I attempted to make one time with honey, because the recipes are all with corn syrup, and I refused to buy corn syrup and to make anything using corn syrup, and it didn't come out right, the modified recipe I made. So I said, I'm not going to try to make it again. But then I said to him, but think about, you're going to have this pecan pie in the house, and you're the only one who's going to eat it. Maybe I'll give a small piece to Andre, and then you're going to end up eating so much, and in the end, this is not something that is good for you at any level. Why don't we just find a place in the community where we live, where a cafe or something, where they have by the slice? We go out, you have a slice, and that's it. You don't have to bring anything with you at home and then think about it every half an hour. I want another piece of pecan pie.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
And he said, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's look at our comment here.
From D. Let's address those, and then we can. And if you have any questions, please ask us.
So let's take a look here. She says she made a family roast 2 days ago, and she did not cook any potatoes, just pumpkin, squash, carrot, zucchini, chokes, cauliflower, all baked. Had a tiny bit of pumpkin and carrot, and had lots of the rest in meat, all cooked in oil. Weight was up a little bit, but this morning lost some weight. So really navigated that very nicely, it seems. Really focused on the protein, the good vegetables, the good fats. Of course, the weight's up because we are consuming a little bit more volume than we're typically doing. But then we offset that with that fast. That's a great real life example.
And I would like to mention about the weight. Anytime we eat carbohydrates, we are going to see an increase in weight, because carbohydrates, when we store glycogen, it's stored with water. So that's water weight. So I even tell people, don't weigh yourself every day. Unless you weigh yourself every day at the same time and you do average, like weekly average, you go crazy, because it's so much water fluctuation. Best way is you can weigh yourself at the beginning of holiday season, and then weigh yourself at the end, and just pay attention how you feel in your body, because you feel when you're sluggish. When you eat too many carbs, you become more sluggish. You're not so agile, and when you bend, you start to feel your waist, like you retain fluid with eating, and eventually you end up gaining fat as well. And just the way the clothes fit on.
Absolutely. Well, this is great. And so for those of us who are, we have a Griffin low carb, high fat Pinterest page where we put our low carb recipes. Please look at the Pinterest page, post or pin your own low carb recipes to the page. That's a wonderful resource. Please comment on our comment section here, offering those tips and that encouragement for those who are following this lifestyle. We can do this. There's no reason why not. There's an abundance. There's a variety of foods here that we can have. And I think everyone should be able to navigate this quite well and enjoy yourself and indulge if that's what you would like to do. And then we get back to real life, our normal life in the days following. So
exercise the next day, fasted. Absolutely. That's another strategy. Lots of water.
Yeah.
And I thought Dee also had, I don't know, another comment or a question.
Let's see here.
And then I guess we can wrap it up.
Okay, see, here we go here. I'm seeing it now. Now that she's doing low carb, high fat properly, she no longer craves carbs. Very easy to follow. She used to crave hot chips, and now she wonders what she ever saw in them. She feels like carbs are an addiction. we agree 100%. And then for the first time, she can easily throw the food out. It truly doesn't help the starving overseas by eating it. Great philosophy. That's absolutely true. And then let's see here. I have questions about getting ketone levels. How do I get my ketone levels up? I've raised it from 0.6 to 0.8 over the last week. I'm aiming for 1.5 to 3.
When are you testing? The question is, because the levels goes up and down. Yeah. If you're just after an exercise when you use them, or depending on the time of the day. If it's early morning, usually they are lower. If you fast, you do intermittent fasting, by this time, if I would test it right now, I'm probably between 1 and 2.
Okay.
Because I've been fasted today. All I had was a coffee with my bulletproof coffee, and then I had some cream and water. And it's 2 p.m. and I exercise fasted every day first thing. Yeah, I suggest, do you fast, D? Because if you fast, I suggest you test before you eat your first meal. Because then at the end of the fast, you should see more fat burning. And if you fast for at least 18 hours and you still don't measure ketones, and you do this for at least a week, I would say check, probably you have difficulties bringing the fat inside the mitochondria to burn it, so maybe L-carnitine.
Great suggestion.
Could be a problem in beta oxidation, because the fat has to, unless you do MCT. MCT doesn't require the carnitine, so then you should see an increase.
So you would recommend supplementing with the MCT oil?
Yeah, that's an option. D, if you want more, it's better that we get together on a one-on-one session. But this is to answer you. Fasting, right, 40 hours, 1.7. To really get it into the fasting levels, which is considered the starvation ketosis, where you are 5, 6, 7, anyway, somewhere between 5 and 7, you probably, for most women, because women have a little bit harder time entering ketosis than men do, a 3 to 5 day fasting. If you are willing to do that, even if you have a little bit of fat, maybe some coconut oil during this fast, not totally water fast, but then that's when you would start to measure higher levels. At least, based on my experience. And with exercise. But then if you exercise, don't test right after the exercise, because some of the ketones are also used depending on the intensity of the exercise. You would want to test maybe an hour or 2 after.
Right.
I hope this helps. For all our audience, I think we can talk more about overall holidays tips on another, because this was more focused on Thanksgiving. But how do you do when candies are brought to the office and I don't know, you go to so many parties, right?
Right, absolutely.
She gets migraine headaches at 45 hours. You would have to push through, I guess.
I thought there with headaches as well. You think about some sodium there with little hydration as opposed to just water. Your broths may be helpful. Magnesium as well, as well is a great idea. And you're right, power through them. Your
coffee enema. I'll send you the link to a 2-hour session. We can drill in it and see what you should do and come up with a strategy for you how to sort this out. I guess that's the best way. It's hard to give you one-on-one advice on this platform. What do you think?
It's tough, but ask the questions in there, and absolutely, Dr. Telecan, you're just a wonderful resource, and I highly recommend a session to get these questions and these nuances figured out. So that's what we're here for. So please post the comments, the questions. We'll do our absolute very best to address each one. And I think we'll be back next week, I believe, for our regularly scheduled topic. And we'll come up with something good for you guys during that time.
Unless you guys have a request for something, we will volunteer a topic.
If you don't provide it, we love talking about really anything. So we'll come up with something good for everyone.
Yes. Thank you. Have a happy, healthy Thanksgiving, those of you that celebrate.
Absolutely. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.